Rooted and Routed. I'm Savia Pathan, the host of the podcast. And today on the podcast, we have a very special friend, a special person to me. She's my boxing buddy. She is my binge buddy. Please welcome Sandra Showalter.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for you and this opportunity and so proud of you and all the work that you've put into this. So I'm excited. What we're doing today.
Thank you. It's just going to be a very normal conversation.
We have normal conversations.
Yeah, that's true. We try to make it as normal as possible, as formal as possible. Not to see. Today, for the audience, I would like to tell you what a great person, expat friend you have been on this expat journey for me in India. So let's start with your background as to what your expat journey has been, and let's see what we can uncover from that today.
Well, I am originally from the US and we got the opportunity in 2008 to move to the UAE in Dubai. And we were living there for 6 years. And that is where we grew our family from the two of us, my husband and I, to four. And that was the last 3 years of Dubai. We moved back to the US in Houston. And we were there for 5 years. And then we have now been in India for 4.5 years. And we're on our way to Colombia. So my last 16 years have been expat experiences, even while moving back to the US.
And when did you start your first expat journey? What was it quite recently? I don't think so. You have been to Dubai.
2008 is when we
First
started
year,
there.
yeah. 2008 to now 2024 has been really a long journey. Did you go back from Dubai to US, or was it from Dubai you moved to India?
Well, no, from Dubai we went back to the US for 5 years.
For 5 years you were in US.
Yeah.
That brings me to a very good question. How was it going back to your home country from being an expat?
Well, I had left a good career to become an expat and follow, my husband to Dubai. And so I didn't really get to continue and do much. I was supposed to finish my degree, but I didn't in Dubai. So I didn't get to work for the 6 years that we were there. Going back to Houston, I felt like I was still an expat. My whole experience of the world had changed. Being an American, where I grew up in middle of nowhere, USA, we had 1,200 people in our city. Going to Dubai, of course, opened up my eyes completely and changed me as a person for the better. Because then I think once you move overseas and have that experience, you become what we call a global citizen. And as a global citizen, your whole perspective of the world and the empathy that you can have for people and themselves and countries really grows. And going back to the US, I had a hard time connecting with Americans that have not been and had that experience of being a global citizen. And it was really tough. So moving, and now we try to stay overseas because we can connect with so many people just because of the differences and the cultures and being more accepting to everything.
I think there are quite some common challenges when you move as an expat, and there are also common challenges when you move back to your home country, or from other friends. And what were the differences, the common challenges when you moved as an expat, let's say to Dubai, and the common challenges when you moved back to US, especially with family, with kids, like adjusting back to the school and adjusting to the school as an expat in international school? Was it different?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say too much about the schools then when we moved from Dubai to Houston because the kids were really young. They were 3 years old and 1 year old, so they hadn't started school yet. And I mean, Lucas, my oldest, he had done preschool Montessori school. Then we put him into kindergarten a couple couple of years after we returned, but I couldn't tell the difference then. However, now they're 13 and 11, and I think going back to the US seems kind of scary in a sense that we are expats here, but when we go there from a company perspective, we're no longer expats. So the opportunities that have been provided to the kids here educationally and, being able to communicate with people from around the world, they lose that if we go back. So I feel like, they go from being in an international school to being in a public school where most of them are, Americans that have just lived there their whole lives and don't understand what it is for someone to come in out of the experiences that the kids have had. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And how has it been? Because I know your background is not just you're an entrepreneur, right? You're a photographer profession. Maybe you can stop that. Because I want to know how is it being an expat that you cannot work officially, and when you go back, then you can. But then how was the difference when you're exposed to expat life and going back to your home country, even starting your own work, like the one that you're really passionate about? Is different, I think. Is different in US, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's hard just being away from work. So I started out in corporate America.
Yeah.
And going to Dubai, I had to leave that experience behind. And once you leave that behind, it's hard to get back into if you've been away from it for so long because they don't want to hire you if you've been away for 6 or 7 years because you've lost that experience now. Your experiences are different. But I don't have the work experience that corporate America will be looking for. So to get back into working to earn some kind of salary, that would be enough to support whatever childcare that I would have to provide during my working hours. I wouldn't be able to find that type of work. And then starting your own business is hard as well because it takes years to really start and make it profitable. And as an expat, every 5 years, 3 to 5 years, if we're moving, then I can't move my business with me because most countries that we move to, the spouses, when they follow, are put on a not allowed to work visa. And it's hard to get that type of visa to be able to work in the country unless you remove yourself from being underneath the family and find a sponsor to sponsor you.
I heard that.
Yeah. But then again, in 3 to 5 years, it doesn't matter. You're still leaving that job and have to start all over again. So by the time we get back to our home country, in our case, it may be like 21 years later, and that would be, where we return permanently. I haven't officially been working for 21 years.
Yeah.
Who is going to hire me? And they take away all the benefits that we were used to as being expats, right?
Yeah.
So
It's a pity. I wish if there was a way that the corporates know or understand this factor of that the success of an expat assignment also should include the spouses. I think some companies offer where you can sharpen your skills and go for a certification in the expat country.
yeah.
Is it the same with your husband's company?
I do have to say our company has been very supportive with the spouses in providing a spousal association where they try to bring together all of the spouses to do activities and get to know each other and build their own community within the company. I do have to say that has been really good, and I've made friends in Dubai and not too much Houston, but some in Houston and definitely in India to carry these friendships with me for life. Like we still talk almost on a daily basis from my friends almost 16 years ago in Dubai. So, and I think that that's something that other companies can adopt.
Yeah.
Is building that kind of community within their business. With other, the other families, putting all the families kind of together.
With my husband's company, they do introduce the existing expat families with the new ones. And then thereafter, okay, once you have a connection, then you find your way. But as in your case, where you have coffee mornings, right?
Coffee mornings, we do
That is
art things, we do bowling, we do, dancing and nice dinners.
That was just for the expat families?
Yes, just for the families.
And is
It's
that
usually the spouses, and then we're allowed one event a year where we can bring in the the couples. So it's the parent, it's the spouse and the employee that they can do.
something for the company to right? I mean, is it? I think it is also probably because the number of expat families in a city, then it's easier than to bring home. If it is just maybe 4 or 5, maybe then it doesn't bring any value, I guess, to organize such coffee mornings, maybe.
I don't know. You don't know until you try. I mean, and then it's important to listen to the spouses about what they're really missing out on.
Yes.
Because really, the health of the household depends on the spouses that are at home. And if that spouse is not, and I say spouses and not wife, because it's, sometimes the wives are the employees and working, and it's the husband that's home and having to take care of things. So I feel like if that spouse is not healthy and happy and being kind of challenged or whatever they're used to being able to do at home, then the whole household isn't going to be happy. And for sure, the employee isn't. And how is that going to help that productivity?
Yeah.
If the employee's not happy because their house life is not happy.
And the spouses are skilled, right? Some of them are really. I have come across, our common friend was a doctor. This is a psychologist.
Yeah.
Right? So such skilled people, I think, are underutilized, and there's a pool of unskilled that remains around, floating around as expats, and that's a pity.
Yeah. Doctor, psychologist, business consultant, fashion designer,
Many, right?
lawyers, so many
stuff.
that they're not able to use what they're studied for.
And I don't know how we can really come to a point that this can be considered and find a way where they can also start working. But there are some companies who are considering, and if not considering, at least we should put it out that maybe they should do something about these spouses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or helping,
Yeah.
It is an opportunity, right? Being an expat is an opportunity, and I guess some would say almost a privilege.
Yeah.
And it is a choice we make when we say yes,
That's true. Yes.
right? But I do think that when you initially make that jump, it's not necessarily clear how hard it will be for the spouse when you don't realize you actually have to give up so much as far as your career and what you had thought you were going to do with your life. And then once you start realizing what your future could be from being away from it for so long, then it can be a little scary.
Yeah. We have identity kind of issues, isn't it? Sometimes you can call yourself as global citizen, but at the same time, I'm sure, like in your case, your kids are they aware of what US is? More like the history, as I said. Remember, we had a conversation. They don't know anything about the history of America, and then it starts from there. And do they really recognize themselves or identify themselves as Americans? I'm not too sure. Yeah, I think yes, but
Yeah, I think they do, but I think they've actually asked me the question before of culture, especially. So many of the countries that we've visited, even not all lived in, but visited, have a culture. I feel like the US is missing culture, an individual culture. So for me, when they have things at school where they have to come in some kind of cultural dress or some kind of song or some kind of food or something like that, then they're like, Ramon, what is there? So I think for them that they feel kind of lost in that they don't have that culture where they come from. And also, as being international, they themselves, because they are American, know only English. They haven't been, they're introduced to second languages, but they're not fluent in the second language. Where 98% of their classmates, English is like their third language. Sometimes their second language. but very few is English their first language. So then they've, had some kind of disconnects with
Yeah.
this, And now going into Colombia, it's going to be difficult for them to adjust because it's Spanish. So now they have to enforce themselves to have that other language, which is good. I think it's great.
I think I think that factor is there, but besides that, there are many key factors for choosing school. How have you been your experience in India? I think you said in Dubai they were not in the school, right? So it is only in India that you had the experience of choosing school. My question is, on what basis did you choose the school? What is the selecting process? Was there some kind of a support? You know, was it like you look at the curriculum of the school, or do you look at the reviews from other parents that helps in your decision of choosing school?
Initially moving from the US to India, uh, because we don't have the American system here, it's, international baccalaureate would be, kind of what we would be forced to do. We kind of mainly went off of friends. Dear friend of mine, her kids went to a certain school here, and then because her kids were really close and good friends, that's where we decided for them to go. Plus, the other school was like an hour and a half away. Just felt like that was time, to be spending on the bus every single day. But during lockdown, things proved differently, where the teachers weren't happy in the school anymore. They weren't teaching to the children; they were teaching to the screens. So we decided to move them to that school that was an hour away. So, and it was a good change for them.
Yeah.
But I have to say that this experience helped us decide what criteria we wanted when choosing our school in Colombia.
Okay.
So now that we're moving to Colombia, school is on the top of the list. Once I know that we have a school, I'll be happy and just kind of go with the flow. But the two things that we wanted to make sure that the school had was the teachers happy. And we could tell that by the interactions that we would get with the admissions officer and who they would bring in, like a teacher or someone else to counselor or psychologist, and how their whole persona was. And the other is the how they help the kids interact and, kind of fit into
Yeah.
the school and with the children. So our answer depended a lot on how the kids felt about it, because the kids got to be in on all the meetings and kind of choose. So I went through 13 different schools, and we did an interview with 4 schools. And then the top 2 the kids chose. So
Wow, this is new. I didn't know. 13 schools.
yeah, there's actually 28 IB schools in Bogota. So narrowing that down, we had to really wanted to make sure we chose a school that kind of taught in mostly English, but still gave the kids the opportunity to learn Spanish and be in the Spanish culture. Uh, I did reviews, like I went on Google, I went on Facebook, and I went to Reddit, and I just found reviews of the schools and made notes, a spreadsheet of all the different things that, were being said, what was bad, what was good. And it's hard to go off of just reviews, because most of the time if someone leaves a review, it's a negative feeling, not always positive. So when the ratings were 4.0, 4 point something, I was like, but if it was 4.4, 4.5 is usually my cutoff, then that's when I would start saying, okay, we'll talk with them. I would find parents that were also there, like on Facebook. I would, make a message, and then I would message separately, interviewing kind of parents or questioning them about what the school is like, the environment. And then from that, I narrowed it down to the 13. And then I did more by asking and looking into more students and seeing what the students' reviews were. And really and honestly, I was very harsh with my decisions. If there was even one student that was unhappy due to bullying, or because they saw drugs were being used, or that the teachers weren't very supportive, anything like that, I nixed it. I said, there's so many schools to choose from that I feel like you can't, I want the best options for the kids. And if the students aren't happy, then how are my kids gonna handle it? And my kids are different, so I'll have to think of both personalities.
That is a long process, right?
It was, yeah. We finally chose one though. We're happy about it. Excited.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It was a long process. Took a couple months.
School is gone and the extracurricular activities in the city is gone, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you're very happy with the school, with the extracurricular activities, whether it is music class or sports. Did you have a good experience in India about that?
It was tough. It still is tough. I mean, I feel like our oldest, Lucas, he had been doing football since he was 4 years old.
Yeah.
He was improving and doing really good at it. Then we moved to India, where football is not necessarily the biggest sport. And most of the equipment and the grounds and everything are not up, the upkeep isn't very well. We did go with Barca, which we found was okay. Like it gives the kids the opportunity to travel if the parents allow it. But I don't feel like his skills really grew. And in another country with the same, it may have grown more. We did have to hire outside.
Yeah.
Music, I think there's some music if that's what you want to get into. Of course, it's going to be more individual and it is going to be on a smaller scale than what most other countries have. Most extracurricular activities, unless you're doing cricket, are going to be on a smaller scale and maybe not up to the standards that most expats would be used to. But you know what? That brings me to a good point. When you go to another country, you're there to experience living there.
Yeah.
Right? So respect kind of what you see and accept some things that are hard.
Yeah.
But make the best of every situation. Like, yes, the grounds were bad. Yes, like the nets were small or something like that. But he's still able to play. He's still learning. And the good things is that he's learning to communicate with other cultures.
Yeah.
Like when we went to Spain for this Barca, the team was entirely it was Indian.
Yeah.
Except for him, right? He's the
Yeah.
But the team invited him in and they, hey, let's go find an Indian restaurant. Why they go to Spain to eat Indian food, but they invited him in, like, Lucas, we want to take you and so you can experience Indian food their way. Their way, though that was how they put it. We want you to experience Indian food our way. And they made him eat with his hands, and yeah, yes. But he remembers that experience. And that's something that will always be with him. Right? So when I think that, and it comes from the parents, the positivity that the kids are going to have are going to come from the positivity of the parents. And so I just feel like, yes, I can say that there's all these challenges of finding a good sports or finding good arts or something like that. But you just need to look at the positive sides of it too and what they still are gaining out of that experience.
Absolutely. I think Barca really helps the kids to be exposed to the international tournaments, giving them the feeling of matches. Right?
Yeah.
The spirit of the football on the big giant field. In Spain, I think that is something different than what you get in India.
Yeah. And there are other football clubs that it's growing in Pune. It really is growing. Football is becoming larger. And so there's more clubs as well. That's just the club that we chose because that's what was available at the time when we were looking.